Right. Hi, morning and afternoon, everyone. I think it's 10 o'clock already in India. So it's a good time to start. We are on Zoom and on YouTube Live for audience at both places. So again, morning, afternoon, hello to everyone, and welcome to this fifth session of IMRC 2022 online symposium on maritime operations, big data, and predictive analysis. I would just like to start by introducing our moderator for today and our assimilator, and I will then leave it to their capable hands. So our moderator today is Mr. Puneet Oza, who sits on the board of Clavinus Asia Private Limited. He's a senior adjunct fellow at MP Academy, and he's a maritime digitization playbook ambassador. He has over 27 experience in dry bulk shipping, holding senior management positions in some leading companies, and he spearheaded the digital transformation of Clavinus dry bulk before moving to the board. Our assimilator today is Mr. Chittadash. He graduated from DMET and he's a fellow of Institute of Marine Engineers India, member of Institute of Engineers and Indian Society for Non-Destructive Testing. He joined the Lloyd's Register Shipping in 1990 and then he took over as the business manager for India, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, and was the chief representative for Lloyd's Register Southwest Asia operations until his retirement. And both our moderator and assimilator today have been a part of IMRC 2020 since its inception in 2020, and we are very glad to have them put together this really interesting session today. And with this, Puneet, over to you. I'll leave it to your hands to take it forward. Thank you, everyone, and welcome again.
Thank you so much, Yogita. Thanks for this introduction, and thanks so much, all of you, for joining in. Welcome to this panel discussion on maritime operations, focusing on big data and predictive analytics for efficient shipping operations. Thank you, Yogita, for the introduction. I would also like to say a huge thanks before I begin to the ISF group, Captain Pavan Kapoor, Mrs. Poonam Kapoor, and of course, Yogita Kapoor for the invitation and the stellar efforts to put together this amazing project called International Maritime Research Confluence, or IMRC. I would first start with requesting my co-host and assimilator, Mr. Das, to also speak a few words about what he has to really feel about this particular topic, and then we can move on to the panel discussion going forward. Mr. Das, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Puneet. Yeah. So we have a very interesting session today. So good morning, everybody. Good morning to our distinguished panelists and of course, the entire ISM team. As Yogita has already pointed out, I've been involved with IMRC since inception, and I must compliment the IMRC team for doing a fantastic job and its contribution to maritime research. So we have a very interesting session today and a very relevant as well, which is the use of big data in maritime operations. Again, I must compliment IMRC 2022 for selecting this topic. The big data is basically collection of data, analyze it, and come up with solutions to deal with the operational challenges. I must say that the quality and the volume of data collection has increased manifold in the recent years, thanks to the advancement of sensor techniques. Similarly, tools and techniques to analyze the data is undergoing massive changes. And of course, finally, large number of solutions are being worked out to deal with various maritime operational challenges, improvement of vessel performance, and of course, the development of autonomous ships. So please note that we are not discussing something hypothetical solutions here, something which is going to come up 5-10 years down the line. No, things are happening right now or at advanced stages. So whether we are talking about navigational support during arrival, departure of ports, or weather routing, or monitoring the coating condition in ballast tanks, or monitoring hull fouling, optimizing machinery maintenance or machinery performance through digital twins, or on-time arrival of vessels in port through vessel tracking. The big data is here and is all set to revolutionize maritime operations very soon. So we have a distinguished panel today to discuss all these aspects, right? So let's look forward to a very interesting session today. I'll now hand over back to Puneet to take over the proceedings. Thank you, Punit, and please take over.
Sorry, Mr. Das. This was very useful as setting a background. Let me also start by sharing a little bit about the IMRC. Just a very quick overview of what we are doing in order to get the ball rolling. The IMRC, as Yogita mentioned, is a 10-year project. And as far as this particular confluence is concerned, the timeline has been already kick-started last year, where we had the confluence of ideas and came up with 6 problem statements. And then we had participation from the industry, experts. Eventually, this symposium is happening today and will eventually bring outcomes in March, which will be evaluated and disseminated to the industry to have some proactive solutions which the industry can use. And all this is eventually tied up with attaining and maintaining the sustainability development goals of the United Nations. So it's really interesting. They've already had sessions on ports and logistics, on technological advancements and shipbuilding, on health, safety, and environment, on commerce and economy, something which again, I'm very, very happy to see. And this maritime operations today, and they will end with the final missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle, maritime HR and training. So this gives you a real broad understanding of how great, how massive the canvas for IMRC is actually. And we are tackling multiple issues. Today, of course, we are talking about big data and predictive analytics for efficient shipping operations. In this regard, we actually have a simple context that the maritime industry, as Mr. Das also mentioned, has a lot of data being generated. And given the variety and the volume of the data that is actually being generated, we can actually categorize these into various ways we can use it. We can use it in managing vessels, in managing the cargo, in managing the ports, routing, and fleets. The Maritime India Vision 2030 also talks about operational efficiencies in other areas like safe operations, schedule management, fleet planning, allocation, and maintenance. The key is, how do you actually get this data and develop tools to eventually foster better and efficient maritime operations? That is the standard classic discussion that I was always had. And I remember Jithan and myself sitting down and talking about it even earlier when I was working on a day-to-day job with Clavness. Post-COVID, what kind of changes have we seen? The digital transformation has been enhanced, and that's why today the options today on the table are much wider and much more than what they were just a few years back. But they are still lacking. What kind of areas can we get research going so that we can achieve these goals? We can actually achieve what we want, more efficient shipping operations, maritime operations, using big data and predictive analytics. So obviously, this is a little bit of an overview, and this gives you a perspective of what we are trying to talk here in this particular session. It's amazing to see the kind of panel that we have. Before we start with the panel discussion, let me say that we have a true cross-section of the industry here. We are actual users of big data and predictive analytics, along with a solution provider using that very data analytics, and finally, a regulator who's not only overseeing the ecosystem, but positively facilitating and helping it along. I must mention here that while the panelists are all from Singapore, the sphere of operations are global. And therefore, the ideas, insights, sharing are applicable across the world. I would request the panelists to introduce themselves just before they answer their very first question. So let me start with the basics. I think Mr. Dash has already touched a little bit on that, but let me ask Sanjeev Namath from Alpha Ori, if you would be kind enough to introduce yourself and also advise us what exactly is meant by the words big data and predictive analytics. This will nicely set the tone for further discussion. Sanjeev, all yours.
Thank you, Punit. And thank you, the organizers of IMRC and also the ISF group for inviting Alpha Ori Technologies. So a brief introduction about myself. My background, I started off as a marine engineer. I've sailed on board for about 12, 13 years. I was in the classification for about 6, 7 years. New building survey, audit, all that, and and then subsequently settled down in Singapore since 2008 in various capacities. I was in the performance analysis team within Japanese major, before joining the Synergy Group, and then the setting up of Alpha Ori Technologies in 2016. I run the business operations in Alpha Ori and look after the sales and the customer success team within Alpha Ori Technologies. That's the brief intro about me, and welcome everyone, all distinguished participants to the seminar. I hope we can all have an interactive session. And now to touch upon the terms big data and predictive analytics. So I think we have been hearing about these terms, and it started off as a hype probably about 5-8 years, and as Mr. Dash was mentioning, it is now a reality, right? With more and more digitalization projects kicking off, and data being shipped from the ship to the shore cloud almost on real-time basis. So we have hundreds of ships, currently close to 300 ships on our platform, generating real-time data. About 3,000 to 5,000 data tags are transmitted, as frequent as once every 30 seconds from the ship to the shore. We are collecting data on the ships every millisecond as and when it generates, but then we only transmit from the ship to the shore cloud once every 30 seconds. So you can imagine the volume, the variety, the veracity, all that associated with the big data that is coming in from hundreds of missionaries per ship. And when you have so many hundreds of ships simultaneously transmitting the data, that is what we would call a big data. And along with the associated data sets that we ingest from the third party, like the weather, whatever has the influence on the ship operations, we do ingest that as well. So that all constitutes the big data. So big data technically is an umbrella term that represents a combination of different types of data, the structured, semi-structured, unstructured data, and its associated applications. So a definition of big data, we typically have those that 5 V's that we call the high volume, high velocity, the variety, the veracity, the accuracy of the data that we collect, and the value that it generates. That is what the big data we normally, but of course it is not a tight definition. There is no threshold like this many terabytes or this many petabytes of data, but that is what we use for big data. The data sources in big data in itself are not useful unless it is associated with some of the systems or the algorithms, that can generate the value or actionable insights. That is the key in order to take leverage of this big data. So the big data in itself does not have any value unless it is having on top of it the associated applications that can generate the value. So that is where the predictive analytics come in. So that uses there are various methods of predictive analytics, be it machine learning, all that. So that can generate actionable insights for either the ship's crew on board or the shore operators and managers to take actions based on the insights that generates. I would like to stop here unless you have any further queries, and maybe leave a segue to the topic that Puneet, I'm sure, will take on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sanjeev. This was very useful. Just to give a basic introduction, we are all on the same page now. So now let us move on to the most important aspect of big data and predictive analytics, user cases. I recently read that examples are not the best way of influencing others, they are the only way. Eventually, it all boils down to users and customers and how they use big data and how they analyze it. We are thrilled to have Jiten Mehra from Toward Clavinus and Ron Fong from Pacific Carriers Limited. And I would invite them, first Jiten, followed by Ron, to introduce themselves and then share some generic insights as to how they are using big data and predictive analytics in their respective companies and maritime operations. Jiten, starting with you, all yours.
Thank you, Punit, and hello, everyone. I'm quite humbled to be given this opportunity to briefly share the big data and predictive analysis flavor from the ground up, as they call it, in this amazing forum. So by way of background, I head up the global commercial operations for Clavinus Dry Bulk and have been based in Singapore since 2008. So of course, I've had a ex-maritime career, which was with Maersk in my early years before I moved ashore. So there is a bit of a flavor from the sea aspect, the commercial aspect, down the ground, up the bridge, and all of that. So, so Clavinus as an organization has been organically supporting and educating the employees on data and analytics as early as 2018, but not with the aim of converting regular mortals like us into hard-coding data analysts, rather with the vision of, helping everyone evolve in their thinking and be comfortable around data. So the vision is simple. It is to improve the nature of shipping, and data is continuing to grow as one of the vital cornerstones to achieving this vision. So data, as Sanjeev as well very rightly put, is big data is one big umbrella. And naturally, our base thinking is that data comes from equipment and machinery, and that's the end of it. But data expands far further. And my particular domain from Clavinus will represent the soft aspect of data that is usually very hard to convert into meaningful insights. And I say that because in this particular role, you neither own the asset in most cases, nor have any direct control. You have a perceived control over the asset, but not a direct control. You don't get access to that information that, let's say, an owner would have. You wouldn't get access to other data points. So you still have to execute, you still have to make sense of it, you still have to find a way through that journey, right? So for us, our data is in very different shapes and forms. And data is vast, very voluminous. Not all of it will make sense. And unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, in the past, nobody cared about data. So data was never managed effectively. And then suddenly everyone wakes up to data being the primary source, but there is no dependable data from the past. So those are actual active challenges that we've been facing. But then let's assume that you put in an effort and you clean up your data. So in our way, my take on data is that clean data will always come in two styles. One is meaningful and the other one is noisy. However, identifying the kind of data suited for purpose is the real key before beginning any predictive analysis on it. So helpful data for managers and leaders will be drastically different than helpful data for, let's say, the execution team. So you have to remember that one size does not fit all. And realizing these differences took the longest time for us, but they yielded some helpful insights. So every initiative, according to us, has to have a defined purpose. It can very well grow into a multi-purpose project, but must start with a basis clear purpose. A few initiatives to sharing, to share with you all of what we've done using data and analytics. So one of the simplest things we did was an attempt to automating and simplifying our value chain in operations, which is basically our day-to-day work. The purpose here was not to give the team, let's say, more ships to handle per person, but quite the opposite. It was to free up time to allow them to focus on better decision making. That is what yields a better outcome. So a lot of people tend to think that, okay, you make things automated, so now you can do more work. But that was not what we wanted them to do. The other thing we did was we established overview dashboards for operations, post-fixture, accounts, bunkers, and that kind of stuff. And the purpose behind that was to improve transparency across departments, to reduce wasted questioning time. It's very easy to just put up your head and ask the other guy, what about this? We provide a platform that you can go and see yourself. But when you reduce this wasted questioning time, it also helps others view the same data in the hope that, the safety net of catching errors or providing insights grows from being departmental to organizational. And these are, again, soft value adds, right? But they provide a different foundation to execute upon. We also worked on one project using this data where we established what we call the dynamic cash flow and outstanding dashboard, right? This has a certain amount of predictive ability also built in to project basis the past trends and market adjustments. The purpose here was to have a weighted evaluation of counterparties and our risk appetite for business with them, along with knowing what it actually costs the organization to continue business in certain trades. A lot of this soft impact gets lost in transition. In a very simple way, if it was put, you need to be paid today, and my friend lasts a month and you paid a month later. You add this on a large volume basis and you can use the data to understand, did it really cost you something? If so, how much? Would you want to continue doing it? If so, with what buffer? So you make qualified decisions a little better. We also, on the lines of transparency, opened up the doors between chartering and operations, which is a constant power struggle in any organization. And I'm extremely proud to say that we don't have that in Klaveness. It's taken a lot of effort, but it's yielded results. So with this transparency, basically, you provided people with a platform to have a more qualitative evaluation and discussion. Also, on the predictive side, we are already working on many more initiatives, and these are all in-house initiatives, but we're happy to, do something collaboratively together or share insights with the industry, simply because that is the way to go. We don't recommend silo-based initiatives because they don't feed off other people's experiences. So predictive side is still a long way to go, to improve instantaneous decision making, selection processes, help with decarbonization, project new ideas, evolve from this is how it's done to a new way of working. So it's a very exciting road ahead, and the speed is really amazing. The relevance of ideas and projects is changing tenfold on a daily basis. So keeping up with this is a challenge in itself. Unfortunately, no data here to help me slow down the pace, but there's definitely a great drive in Klaveness, and I don't think I could have contributed to this extent had it been from any other organization, because we get immense support internally to try different things and learn from it. So thanks once again, and that's where I would leave it for now.
Thanks, Jitin. Very insightful. Ron, all yours.
All right, I think thank you, Puneet, and the organizers for the invite first. And frankly speaking, I think Jitin covered quite a bit, and it's very interesting, right? But I'm not sure anything else I could share. But But then maybe I should just wanted to share that, before the predictive analytics part, or, when AI or even machine learning comes in, I would believe most of the organizations today have embarked on some form of use cases involving business intelligence instead, right? Whether, it's, a traditional platform, Excel, people putting together, simple data, and then you do some sort of business intelligence with it, what we call it BI, right? Now, from my side, I think what I can share on the execution part in this case that covers a BI and how predictive analytics comes after. One was
sorry, Ron, maybe I can just ask you to give a short introduction of yourself so that people can get a context of your background.
Sure.
That'll be really nice. We can tie it up together.
Yeah, so I'm currently the head of IT for Pacific Carrier as well as Porsche Offshore. I've been in industry for nearly 15 years, mostly dealing with the wet and dry fleets, system integration, comms, and digitalization. Yeah, it's nowhere near most of you here actually. Yeah, so that's my background. And now coming back to that use case part, right? When it comes to BI and how the predictive analytics comes after. Taking for the example, the first one, when it comes to vessel performance, right? We have seen inputs for a voyage, let's say between voyage between A and B, right? And we take in data like weather, flow meters, shaft power meters, all these bunker rates, etc. Based on this output, we can tweak some form of configuration on board to achieve an optimized route, right? Which also provides a pretty accurate ETA and a cost to complete the route. But all this today is basis current or historical data, from a BI perspective. Now, when predictive analytics comes in, right, we are now then able to forecast future traffic and provide predicted ETA and cost. Much like, when you order a service from, let's say, India's Swiggy, Zomato, or even Singapore's Grab, these are, the type of use cases that we actually try to develop today. The second type of use case in this case is around crew performance and injury analysis, right? Inputs includes, historical incident records, for example, vetting records, the crew type, etc., right? The output quite clear. You are able to evaluate, crew performance and safety performance, etc. But now, when predictive analytics comes in, right? One, we are hoping that, taking a certain crew combinations on board, when we put them on a particular set of ship, how will that result in the overall safety and performance of a vessel? Highly similar to the movie Minority Report. If one has ever seen it, we are trying to predict what is actually coming along in the future, right? Now, the third example that I wanted to share was around similar to what Jiten and Mr. Dash has shared before. Vessel maintenance. We know putting all this data that goes in, make a model, the breakdown incident, historical plant maintenance records, etc. This again is basis a BI model, right, where we plan and overhaul downtime based on a maker's recommendation or even historical records of breakdown. Now, predictive analytics comes in, and with all the new sensor technologies, whether it's by vibrations, whether it's by certain AI logics and algorithm behind it, we then start predicting if a certain machinery is going to break down in advance, and how this performance of this machinery impacts the other system that is linked to it. Like, Sajid well shared, right? All this data that comes in from multiple different systems being integrated together and then decide on what's the next decision to be done, right? So these are the things I would like to share with you. That's all. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ron, and thanks again, Jitin. So obviously, this is a great example of two different types of maritime operation. One from a pure ship owner's perspective, one from a charterer or an operator's perspective, where the control on the vessel is not the same absolute control that you have, Ron, in your case. But thank you so much for sharing some real life application. It brings so much connection and clarity to the matter that we are discussing, right? This is exactly the kind of connection and clarity that the solution providers are looking for as they develop, test, and roll out these solutions to the market. And it will be really fascinating to get a view from a solution provider of how it uses the insights, the ecosystem, learning and helping each other grow and benefit from such solutions. So Sanjeev, I come back to you. Can I ask you to share some insights on how in Alpha Ori, and how from a viewpoint of a solution provider, you're actually using. And again, some generic examples or some success stories can be really interesting for us to kind of put a context to how a solution provider is thinking about using big data and predictive analytics. Yeah, over to you, Sanjeev.
Thank you, Puneet. Yeah, I think as a solution provider, when we go to the market, right, it's straight on. We are asked this question, what is the ROI? If I have to invest $1, how much is the return of my investment, and how quickly that we can get that return. This is we prepare well for this question, in showcasing what value proposition our solutions provide. So one of the major big data predictive analytics solution that we have rolled out is on the fuel optimization, and that has got everybody knows, right? We all know that 60% of the ship operational cost is spent on the bunker, and with the environmental regulations coming up, emissions is on focus. So every ton of fuel saved not only puts more money in your pocket, but also enhances your green agenda. So that has been a key driver for our growth. And we have this Voyage fuel optimization solution that primarily drives the value by optimizing the speed, ingesting the weather data that along the waypoints that the voyage route is planned, and optimizes the fuel oil consumption. So that has been a key driver for us. And just to quote a few clients, BW LPG, one of our major client who have had adopted fleet-wide our solutions. They reported in their last quarterly results, they have over 20 plus ships that are installed with our smart ship solution. And over 10 ships are now implementing the voyage optimization. The others are being retrofitted with the dual fuel propulsion systems. So out of the 10 ships, they saved about $1.5 million by using our fuel optimization. So that is for interested parties. You can Google. It is out there in the press. BW LPG quarterly result, the last quarterly result. That has been one key win for us. And apart from that, the other the predictive analytics solution that we have is for the condition monitoring, the predictive maintenance. We all recognize the value to transcend from the time-based maintenance schedules to condition-based maintenance. There is a lot of wastage that is happening. So that we are pushing the boundaries there a bit. Of course, we, as a solution provider, there are some challenges, which I'm sure we will address it later. When it comes to the original equipment manufacturers, the makers of the equipments are so protective about the solution providers entering that territory. So, but we all know that if you have the big data and if you have the logic, the engineering logic, and the domain expertise, anybody can solve that. And of course, there are the beauty of data science and AI-based predictive analytics applications is that it's not. There are some insights that can also be like completely uncovered, which there are no obvious relationships, that there are no fixed patterns or fixed logics, but that will get uncovered by the AI solutions. So and also to touch upon what Ron mentioned, he had an interesting point, right? We don't have to only rely upon the big data and the predictive analytics. There are a lot of use cases that can come out of not of the big data, but of IoT data, IoT data, and also like cargo storage that we have a system that we have developed. It's a simple scheduling problem, right? The cargo storage on a chemical tanker or a cargo storage on how we can automate the decision support, how we can have the AI to automatically allocate the cargo storage, taking into the various constraints, the incompatibility, the first in, first out, all that constraints and the port rotation, and provide the decision support. So there are a lot of things that technology can help in that direction. And definitely, I think we are just seeing the tip of the iceberg. That is what I believe. There are, as we go along, there'll be more and more applications and solutions being developed in the future. Puneet, that is my view.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Sanjeev. As I said, the jigsaw puzzle is finally taking some shape here. We've had the basic building blocks, the users' experiences, some solution provider experiences, and now let us turn to the final piece of the puzzle in my mind, the regulators, who positively foster the growth and quality of the ecosystem that all of us are benefiting from. And again, we have to see some real life examples, and we are fortunate to have Yi Han from the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, who have proactively groomed a vibrant ecosystem and a marine tech, that's the new term coined there, marine tech platform for the industry. Yi Han, please do introduce yourself and share some insights with us on this.
Yeah, thank you, Puneet. Well, good morning and afternoon to all. So thank you to the organizers once again for inviting me to be on the panel. So I'm Yi Han. I'm the Director of the Innovation, Technology and Talent Development Division in the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, or MPA in short. So a brief background about myself. So my expertise and specialization is in computer engineering, and I've been in the maritime industry for around 16 years. Today, my team works closely with both the industry and research performers, such as the institutes of higher learning, research centers, and maritime corporates on areas of innovation such as in digitalization, decarbonization, and automation. So I've actually prepared a few slides to share and address this segment of the panel discussion. So maybe I'll just start off with this slide. This is a slide about the Maritime Singapore ecosystem. So Maritime Singapore is anchored by our hub port and International Maritime Center, or IMC in short. So while Singapore has maintained our status as a leading maritime city, it is also important that MPA and Singapore continues to push forward towards our digitalization efforts to maintain our port and maritime hub competitiveness. So we have actually put in place 2 master plans relating to our hub port and IMC in the past few years. Some of our key strategic imperatives in this digitalization efforts include the growing of our IMC to retain and attract more businesses. So this actually requires us to adopt innovative technologies to optimize service deliveries and provide a comprehensive suite of services that will continue to attract more customers to call at our port. So for example, we are piloting the use of maritime drones for shore to ship deliveries, and also underwater drones for hull inspections and cleaning. We are also piloting the use of additive manufacturing for marine spare parts to enable timely predictive maintenance and replacement. So as when ships call into the port, they're able to access some of these spare parts and equipment. The other parts that we are also working on will include the enhancing of Singapore's global connectivity to open up new opportunities, including the maritime technology startups, or what Puneet mentioned earlier, marine tech in short. So through enabling the digital connectivity with major digital platforms in the maritime transport chain, and together with the key hub ports in the region and internationally, we see that it will benefit the shippers as the shipment of goods will become more efficient via greater system interoperability along the transport chain on the sharing of information. Such information could include information relating to the vessel and cargo for port calls and clearance. And with all this data sharing and information exchange, this could lead to cost reductions to the shippers and the shipping lines. Through the digital connectivity efforts, our maritime tech startups would also benefit by expanding their service offerings to the larger international community. A third part of this digitalization effort will also be to adopt an ecosystem approach towards strengthening the collaboration and integration of our sectors. So we need to establish an ecosystem of highly capable and innovative businesses through initiatives such as data sharing and service integration, enhancing our value proposition as a global hub port. So we are actually working very closely with various different stakeholders to look at how we can foster greater data sharing, not just within the maritime sector, but also across to the trading and logistics sector to ensure better integrated services and new service offerings for the industry. So as such, we are actually promoting and developing a data exchange platform within MPA itself. This is the Maritime Data Hub. And at the national level itself, we are also looking at the use of the Singapore Trade Data Exchange or SG TradeX as a infrastructure to support the efficient supply chain operations and interactions among shippers, carriers, service providers, ports, and banks. So example of some of these supply chain digitalization efforts that MPA is pursuing includes the electronic bill of lading, digital bunkering, as well as looking at how we can digitalize ship supplies. Last but not least, on this slide itself, I also like to highlight that with so much data coming on board, it is also important to look at how we can establish and harmonize digital standards across like-minded partners so that, collectively as the industry, we can progress and use the data more efficiently and effectively. So at the global level, Singapore wants to play a part to help the industry and the community set global maritime standards. So we are working with the IMO to work with member states to build up their own maritime single windows and also help to work with them on the data adoption and data standards development so that we can enable greater interoperability of data platforms at the government as well as at the industry level. So maybe I can go to the next slide. So how do we promote innovation and digitalization within the Singapore ecosystem? So as a start, you can see that MPA has put in place an annual Maritime Innovation Challenge that gathers industry challenge statements, which is then directed to the 4 different solver communities to develop into commercial products, services, or solutions. So the 4 solver communities that you can see on this slide are our marine tech startups, our marine tech companies, our universities and research institutes, as well as to target students. So this process has been effective for us in producing new ideas and solutions and to bring in place the demand and supply, the demand users as well as the solver communities. So funding for proof of concept, R&D or product development can be extended by MPA to qualifying projects in order to accelerate and support such developments. And we welcome the partners from the industry as well as overseas research partners to join us in this process of innovation. On the right side of this slide, you can see some of these solutions that have been developed thus far through such a process. So we have the likes of intelligent container visibility by podcast, the streamlining of last mile deliveries for ship supplies by ship, confined space inspections using drones by performance rotors, and also underwater inspections by BX. So just to quote an example of how big data and analytics are used, podcast software uses machine learning algorithms to dynamically predict vessel utilization and arrival times by integrating real-time external data sets. So this allows supply chain stakeholders such as forwarders, carriers, and global shippers to cut down on their port fees by some 50% and manual work by some 80%, and also eliminate any delays at the ports. I'll go to my next slide. So an ecosystem approach and enabling environment is key to foster industry innovation and transformation. So I just wanted to highlight that over time, Singapore is fortunate to have the support of the industry, and we have grown into a thriving and vibrant ecosystem of maritime and innovation players within Singapore. So today we are anchored by around 5,000 maritime corporates, which includes over 160 shipping groups. The ecosystem that you can see on this slide also includes our corporate incubators and accelerators, venture capital companies, as well as research and innovation performers. We want to continue to attract global companies and grow companies to be established in Singapore as the industry continues to transform and develop. I'd like to highlight one part at the bottom left side of this slide, which is on our partners. So one of our key partners is the Singapore Maritime Institute, or SMI in short. We work closely with them on collaborating in R&D areas with local as well as overseas partners. SMI today have set up 4 maritime centers of excellences in the universities and polytechnics to look at various aspects of technology and digitalization. Some of the areas that they look at today includes the use of digital twins to model ports and ship operations and performance, looking at how digitalization can be used to optimize operations in the maritime sector, the use of simulation and modeling to understand certain characteristics of new designs and new technologies put in place. And all this seeks to really look at how we can improve the overall shipping and port performance, not just for efficiency, but also to look at increasingly the reduction of carbon footprint, as mentioned by Sanjeev earlier as well. So we'd like to continue to work with partners to develop new programs and projects by linking up both the researchers and the industry end users in close collaboration on this front. So on today's topic of big data, we also wanted to highlight that we increasingly also see the challenge of the availability of this large amount of industry data piping in, and without making sense of it, all this data comes to nothing. So we wanted also to work very closely with the industry to see how we can make greater sense of the data coming in through leveraging artificial intelligence as well as machine learning. So as I mentioned earlier, we work closely with the SMI, and just last year itself, they have mentioned that they will be partnering 3 industry partners, Kongsberg Digital, RightShip, as well as Vasila Voyage, on the Maritime Artificial Intelligence R&D program to harness data and catalyze the development of maritime AI applications over the next few years. So last but not least, beyond all these various corporate and international entities that you see here, I'm also pleased to share and highlight that we have a network of passionate industry advocates promoting maritime innovation and digitalization. Of course, here with us today, Pune is one good example. Today, we have close to 100 professionals and leaders in MPA's Circle of Digital Innovators, or CDOs in short, in our network, as well as Maritime Digitalization Playbook ambassadors to advise, guide, and enable maritime enterprises on their digitalization and transformation journeys. So give me some time to share on my last slide, more to highlight about the environment that we are co-creating with the industry to enable such innovation. So Singapore, as a major hub port and home to many ship owners, operators, and managers, we are uniquely positioned for the co-creation and test bedding of digital and decarbonization solutions, both ashore and also on board vessels. The enabling environment allows companies to trial new technologies under a sandbox arrangement, which can facilitate innovations to be tested in one of the most challenging and busiest real-world conditions in Singapore. So today, we have a few living labs established by MPA, PSA, and Jurong Port, which are both our port operators. This covers test bedding and trials, both in the physical as well as in the digital domains. So for example, the MPA Maritime Drone Estate, as you see on this slide, has enabled marine tech startups and maritime corporates to demonstrate shore-to-ship deliveries of 3D printed marine parts. And we also have the Maritime Data Hub, which is the data repository that you see on this slide. It is a one-stop data sharing platform for the industry and technology developers to share and use maritime data to co-develop new and innovative application and digital services. This is also a key platform for us to enable new services such as the just-in-time port that vessels can use to optimize their port costs into Singapore. So since its launch in April 2019, it has garnered more than 50 million API calls from some 80 organizations. We have some 5 million data points that are being shared. And we see this as a platform or baseline to enable innovative applications for the industry, both for the tech developers as well as the industry end users to leverage on. So we continue to welcome partners to take advantage of these resources to develop, trial, and deploy your solutions in Singapore, working with both our research partners as well as our industry players. Yeah, so this is what I have to share at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jihan. As always, extremely impressive to see this, and also great way to share this with other port authorities as well, to try and see where synergies can exist. Obviously, this has been a great session, but before we end it, I would just request all the panelists to quickly list out some gaps in this space of maritime operations efficiencies through big data and predictive analytics, which could be worthy of research. Because IMRC at the end of the day is about enabling purpose-driven research in line with the UN Sustainability and Development Goals, or SDGs for short. So a quick list of a wish list of gaps, ideas, topics, which you feel are key to success of using big data and predictive analytics for efficient maritime operation. We can take this discussion in the same order, just a few minutes, with Sanjeev starting off, then Jitin, Ron, and finally Yihan. What would you like to see in terms of research and being pushed out? And after we finish that discussion, we will go into Q&A. So we have had a few questions already. We will definitely come back to those questions right after this sharing by the participants. So Sanjeev, just a couple of minutes. What would you like to see as a list of ideas that can be researched? Yeah.
Thank you, Puneet. I think one of the key things that I think Yihan had already presented, it's about that common data structure, right? When it comes to the maritime, the navigational data is standardized. The data protocol, the NMEA protocol is used because of the data fusion requirements that we see in it is mandated by IMO to have the common data. But when it comes to the cargo systems, the machineries in the engine room and all that, it's all over the place. It is up to the maker to use their proprietary data protocol for communication. So, and that has been a key challenge for startups like us, right? That's a very high bar to cross. And that also increases the cost for digitalization. So we have been pushing that a bit. Of course, MPA has been quite supportive in that aspect. How we can get all the maritime original equipment manufacturers to work on one single data protocol and have a common interface, for solution providers or for the ship owner or manager to collect the data and use the data. That is one key, I think, a wish list that personally I would like to see a change in that would democratize the kind of use of data. And now only ship owners with the deep pockets are willing to digitalize because of this. Yeah, so that has been a key challenge that we see. The cost of digitization definitely would come down once the standardization is there, and I will look forward to a time when the ships that are being delivered from the shipyards come with one single interface where it's a kind of a plug and play for solution providers and anybody who wants the access to the data, of course, with the ship owner's approval. That would change and accelerate the value quite a bit. That is one key thing. The other challenge as a solution provider that we are seeing is the mindset in approaching the digitalization, right? We see that the top level, the CEOs, the CFOs are seeing the value in going for digitalization, but down the order, we see this reluctance in moving ahead. Yeah, that change management. So when we have the big data, of course, big data itself, you need the infrastructure, the technology stack to process, scrub, all that, to make use of the big data, and then use the predictive analytics to bring out actionable insights. But if the frontline users, be it in the shore or on the crew, does not utilize that actionable insights, then it is a complete waste, the digitalization. So that the change management aspect of the thing that we need to recognize, that's the big elephant in the room, So unless we from top to the bottom across, everybody believes in it and is willing to change and transform, So we are looking at the business models to be transformed, the operational models to be transformed in order to find success out of digitalization, be it big data, IoT, whatever, the predictive.
Yep, I agree. And in fact, research can probably generate some hypotheses and test them out. So that can be very useful for creating industry research. So those are good ideas. Jitin, what about some gaps, of course, with your user cases? What could be an area that you can benefit from a research coming in and helping you, basically?
Right. So, of course, I was looking at my speaking notes, and then when Sanjeev started speaking, I was like, okay, point number 1 gone, point number 2 gone, point number 3 gone. But we take that in the positive light, right? Because that's indicative of the same kind of gaps, same distance that is being observed even from a different perspective. So that's, of course, good. The challenge on our side is the kind of operations that we're representing is it encompasses a very wide spectrum with very large third-party influences affecting, the execution, both in a positive and a negative way. So in that spectrum, we were not really sure whether this would be a full-scale research idea or not. But what can be done in order to help collaborate with other equivalent partners? So you don't necessarily have to collaborate with, let's say, an engine maker from our level, but how do we collaborate with another peer in the same spectrum or the same sphere to exchange data, to share data? The challenge here is everyone expects that solutions will drive these changes, like digital solutions. But solutions are only the platform to help you show information in different forms. It is always up to us, the user or the business executor, to find out how to make it meaningful for business application. So what kind of trends can be studied to create, let's say, a standardization of business execution? This is not like the war rules or anything, but if you take some learning from airlines, the IATA association, which is governing all functional rules for airlines to do business, does the maritime sector need something like that? Does it need something that is fit for purpose in today's day and age and can lead us 20 years forward, or at least 50 years forward. We're still prancing around with historical trends, historical styles of execution. That research, can it drive a change? Because I do believe that it can, because the ulterior objective should be transparency. Today, an airline doesn't hide its prices. It's public. It's your choice. You want to take that or not. What is defining that differentiating factor? We're missing that. So, because transparency is what makes people believe that will take away your profits. But it's quite the opposite. Sharing and advertising everything for others to work upon helps collaborate and evolve. And then situations like black swan events like COVID, it can either catch you with your pants down, or it'll catch you in a very comfortable position. You're like, it's fine. Things will still continue as they are. So, it skews the market unnecessarily, because people are not prepared for such events. How do you prepare? Because you're representing a very small percentage. So where can research help? It's in these spheres. That does the maritime ecosystem in our level need some sort of a hard-coded structure to operate and share data and collaborate? That would be my comments in terms of gap and collaborative areas of research.
I agree, and I can tell you that from Sanjeev's comments earlier and what you spoke, Jitin, there's a lot of thinking which went about in the transformation journey that Klaveness took was very exactly with this idea that you need the standardization before you can actually start digitizing anything, which is obviously a lot of work being done. But Ron, coming to you, I know you were passionate about cybersecurity as one of the biggest gaps which exist with all the data flowing out there, technology hitting you left, right, and center. How about the security of the data, and how about the security? A passionate subject of yours. So maybe that's an idea that you want to elaborate a bit on, yeah?
I'm not sure I want to comment too much about the cybersecurity part, because it's a bit taboo word somehow, when you try to govern data that you collect, right? But I think I sort of echoed what Jitin and even some of the participants has put up. Standardization of data is crucial. And in my sense is, today, most maritime company, or pretty much every company, ESG is already practiced in that maritime organization, right? So from on environment decarbonization perspective, a lot of data are being collected by various different organizations. Big isolated data, which also sort of translate into big server hosting, and then it translates again into big electricity consumption. These big emissions of electricity versus, what we actually save on a predictive, optimized route, for example. What would be that long-term impact on the environment is what I'm very curious about, in a research perspective. So it would be good to know, can we have some form of standardized guideline to collect only relevant data? That's one part. Now, the second part is digitalization in maritime is progressing so fast, right? Today, we see a lot of data that's being sent on each of the vessels and then onto the cloud or to the shore. People analyze whether it's machines or actual people who analyze it, and then you make certain level of decisions and you communicate it on board to make and execute that plan, right? So from a people and a seafarer perspective, how can we upskill seafarers' career and skill set to match this trend, right? When we say we wanted to automate it, how do we really close this cycle here? So because we see a lot of improvement on the shore side, but pretty much nothing has been done on the seafarer side. So this is the gap I'm looking at. In terms of cybersecurity, I think I better leave it to another separate topic for that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ron. Thanks for your thoughts. And Yihan, finally, your thoughts on maybe some gaps, something that you'd like to see, and maybe you're already doing some research ideas which you can share on this a topic of big data and predictive analytics.
Yeah, thanks, Puneet, and thanks for all the good ideas from all the different panelists. I think the data standardization and harmonization part is something that MPA is working very closely both within the community in Singapore as well as globally. So we have actually already a few different initiatives that we are putting in place, really to look at how the data can flow and be exchanged between different users easily. So of course, one approach is really what I've shared earlier in the Maritime Data Hub, collecting some of this industry data that end users could pick and choose and develop solutions and optimize our operations around that. Moving on a broader basis, we have also worked with various different port authorities such as the Port of Rotterdam, and also trade platforms like TradeLens, DCSA, which is the Digital Container Shipping Alliance, on having this Digital Oceans initiative, which looks at harmonizing vessel site information so as to enable easier and more efficient clearance of vessel and port, more efficient port clearances as a result of common data, that it can be pre-populated and repopulated, as a vessel cost across different ports. But at the end of the day, I think fundamentally, as what has been mentioned by the different panelists itself, I think what will be useful is really to look at how do we make the right decision in terms of the relevant data to collect on board the vessels. I think this is an effort that I think will be interesting for the research community and also the industry end user to look at, how do we decide on the relevant parameters to collect as part of optimizing the vessels and also increasingly to meet the decarbonization agenda. And along with that, I think then how do we exchange the data beyond just the enterprise itself to your stakeholders or your downstream partners that may require the data to stage or to call that or prepare certain resources. So this could be the example of how before a ship calls into a port, having timely understanding of the vessel's routing and time of arrival would help the port to arrange for timely berthing of the vessel. And through some of the initiatives that we are working on, we also realize that companies and entities can be quite protective of their data. There is this issue about what is deemed as valuable, what are necessary data to be shared. I think this is also an area worthy of discussion and research. I think to have a common understanding of what are the baseline of data that is needed in order to collectively as an ecosystem progress and move forward. And I think with all this work done here, I think there will still be a lot of data that is going to be put in place in the ecosystem. So I think inevitably AI and machine learning is necessary in order to make sense and sieve out all this information. And for us to identify the unknowns, because sometimes we just have a tendency to miss out some of these things. So a system that is smart enough to detect certain hidden trends will be really useful. And I think this is also where MPA is working with the industry and research players to look at how we can advance on the AI agenda. And I think last but not least, I thought that what would be also useful is that the ship-to-shore data exchange infrastructure can also be enhanced. Today we are looking at the likes of your AIS, VHF kind of data exchange. If higher bandwidth kind of data transfer can take place, I think some of these higher computing data crunching resources could be offloaded to a data center that could be, say, powered by a renewable energy source, which could overall, make it more efficient for operations itself. So I think these are some of the thoughts and views that I have. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ihan. You have covered a lot of ground there. I know that we are definitely way about time now. So some questions were asked and they were answered on the chat as well. I would just like to add one wish list, which I've also spoken to Yihan earlier about. I would love to see a solutions exchange. I would like to see all the solutions in one place, categorized by chartering solutions, operation solutions, ship-based solutions, so that we can try and pick and choose the right solutions from a range of solutions, like a marketplace, I would call. But I'll hand over finally, after this amazing discussion, to Mr. Das to recap and to probably give the final words on his views and his takeaways from this particular discussion. Thank you so much, Das. All yours.
Thank you, Puneet. Are there no more questions from the audience?
No, Mr. Dash, the questions have been answered and only some comments were from the audience. They've all been answered. Unfortunately, there have been questions really coming in for Mr. Yihan. He has answered them about data analyst and other being trained, that they are partly, there are a few out there who are being trained and more will be done in future about maritime data analysts. And also there's a question on tidal port in Bay of Bengal, which obviously he's not able to answer because it's probably out of the purview of the MPA. Other than that, there have been comments on standardization and the echoing of the comments that Sanjeev and Jitin have made about the value of standardization. And there is also a discussion on whether a top-down approach works better or a bottoms-up approach works better on the digital transformation. So obviously different views, but thank you so much for all the comments and the questions. Any more questions, please do let us know. But Ms. Dash, all yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Puneet. It has been a really wonderful session. Of course, our esteemed panelists, through their experience and knowledge, have nicely deliberated on many aspects of this complex topic. I must tell you, big data is really a complex topic, and I'm sure our distinguished audience must have found it very useful and relevant. So they have really come up on with what they're using, how they're using big data, and their success stories, right? Like Jitin spoke about like how they're able to free up the time for their managers by using big data, so that they have more time for better decision making, right? There are like dashboard for operations. Then there are dashboard for the dynamic cash flow and outstanding. Of course, all that has promoted transparency, and of course, really it has helped the company. Similarly, Ron spoke about how they're using it for predicting the ETA accurately based on the historical data. Similarly, it is like improving the health and safety culture within the company and reducing the lost time by using the big data. Vessel maintenance PMS is another area which they've been using big data, right? Of course, from the solution provider side, we have Sanjeev. We really came up with this fuel optimization solution through weather routing, optimum speed. Then of course BW is using their solution and have saved about $1.5 million on 10 ships. So similarly, the condition-based maintenance solution is another, there is a success story, but I believe he's facing a lot of resistance from the OEMs. They really don't want to part with too much of information there. That is a challenge. Cargo store is another solution. Cargo store, like in a chemical tanker or a product tanker, they can be using how to store the cargo. That is another solution they're providing, which has been very useful. Of course, from MPA, Han-E has really come up with a lot of new ideas, and what they're doing is really, I'm really impressed with what they're doing on digital connectivity, data exchange for efficient data sharing of information, service integration, collaboration, like with not only to shipping, it is about shipping, trading, logistics sector, ports, digitalization of your bunkering, space and supplies. And I really liked about this idea of IMO for adopting, or like there is a move, they're pushing for IMO to adopt maritime data and standardization. That is something IMO needs to, it's time IMO needs to get in. And what they're doing about promoting innovation and digitalization is really an eye-opener. Like the annual Maritime Innovation Challenge, they are promoting, and this is the fund, Maritime Innovation and Technology Fund. So they are really doing great service to this digitalization is good. It is their this ecosystem approach towards industry transformation, where researchers, users, facilitators are in close collaboration. They're providing a platform for that. And of course, maritime universities are playing a very important part there. So I really like all the initiatives that MP is taking. And of course, the other one we spoke about is the Singapore is the place to co-create and test bed digital and decarbonizing solutions. A really innovative idea there. And of course, the Singapore Maritime Data Hub is in existence since 2019, which is a repository for maritime communication data. So really, really wonderful stuff there, I believe. And all our panelists have come up with what they are implementing, what they are, what their plans for the future, and what all, how they're using big data for their day-to-day, for solving their day-to-day challenges or improving the maritime operations. And that would include also, this vessel performance, which will help them in meeting our this decarbonization standard, right? So let me just get back to the wish list of the ideas for research, for which IMRC 2022 is one of their main aim is to collect ideas for research. So all our panelists have come up with very good ideas there, like standardization of navigation data, which is already there. There is no issue there, but there is a need to standardize the cargo system and machinery data, where the OEMs are registering the single data protocol. If it is incorporated, for example, if this is incorporated during the new building of a vessel, see how immensely it would help the solution providers, everything available at the time of new building. If the OEMs somehow agree to share to agree to the single data protocol, that would be a game changer. But how do we do that? I really don't have any idea, but then that is something we need to work on. Then other one, that is the reluctance of senior management to embrace technology. That is the change management, that is a challenge. Big data, your IoT, artificial intelligence, machine learning. So that is very much the way forward. But the willingness to change and transform, particularly the senior management, that is something we need to work on. Then other aspect is that willingness of the users to embrace the change or upgrade the skill set. For example, are the maritime training institutes, do they have the required curriculum today to at least to impart some basic education to the cadet, to the students? And how the existing people who are already working there on ships or in maybe the shore establishments, how are they upskilling themselves? That is something we need to work out. There should be avenue where they can upskill themselves also. That is that is another area which could be worked on as an idea. And then structure to standardize the big data is another very important thing which has cropped up here. Then there should be enablers to share and collaborate within the industry. Who is going to do that? Who will provide this? Will this be regulators, or something has to come from the IMO? I don't know, or maybe the industry group, some focal group may be created. So we have to provide enablers to share and collaborate within the industry, right? It will benefit, it's a win-win situation, it will benefit all. Then other challenge is how to separate unnecessary data from the large volume of data being generated today. That is definitely a area to focus. A lot of unnecessary data that must be separated, right? That is an idea for research. Then of course, shift to shore data exchange infrastructure needs to be improved. Maybe ships may not have, ships need to improve or maybe upgrade the infrastructure so that they can easily, maybe the shore will have better facilities. So maybe ships need to upgrade themselves so that ship to shore data exchange infrastructure can be, there will not be any hiccups there. So that needs to be improved. Of course, the other thing which is not directly linked to big data, but definitely the big concern is the cyber security, which was not discussed, that is a separate subject altogether. The more data you generate, more data you analyze. You're talking about autonomous ships, you're talking about digital twins, so you're talking about using data for all your maritime operations. Definitely you need to ensure that proper cyber security regime is in place. Without that, everything will go for a six. That's for sure. So that is something which is directly linked to the efficient functioning of big data. Like how to, if you want to use big data, you must ensure that you have a proper secure cyber security that is in place, so that you do not lose the data. You do not, it is not your data is secure, right?
Perfect.
So only thing, one more thing, I think another point I would like to add is that we have a Maritime India Vision 2030. We have a national action plan. So where many of these things are covered already. I mean, that is, I'm talking about India here. So I think Indian government is very, is willing to support all the research and development. In fact, our DG Shipping also has got a good funding to support maritime research. And they're talking about practical research, not about any theoretical stuff. They're practical research together with your shipyards and owners and maritime universities. So the time is right to really come up with some nice ideas and anything technology related, like big data, AI, machine learning, IoT, all that will be lapped up. That'll be definitely given a green signal to move ahead. So thank you all. That's all I could summarize. Maybe I may have missed out many stuff, but anyway, that's with so much ideas, so much stuff which really came up from our esteemed panelists. I may have missed out certain things, but that's the gist of the things. Thank you, Mr. Dash. And back to Puneet.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dash, and thank you to all the panelists. I enjoyed this session. I always enjoy this topic. And it's always great to learn more and share more. So I'll just hand it back to Yogita and just thank all of you once again. Yogita, all yours. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Puneet. Thank you, Mr. Dash. Thank you all esteemed panelists for this wonderful session. Just want to add, there are a few questions that we could not tackle, but we have kept a record, and we are hoping either we can get back to you on a more immediate basis or through the paper that we publish. There is some questions related to training, which is, I think, very important. The more digitization you get in, you have to skill your workforce even better. So definitely we will take account of all these questions and try to come back with all of this very soon. So just final comments. Thank you so much, everyone, for this wonderful panel. I'm so glad we talked about so many topics. Like yesterday, we had this session on health, environment, safety, talking about DHG emission targets, etc. And it all boils down to what kind of data you're able to collect, your correct inventory management, which can then lead to proper efficiency management, energy efficiency management. And today we have spoken actually about digitization, taking it forward. Yesterday, we spoke about ports and logistics, and one of the main topics that came up was the future of smart ports in India and how digitization is the actual route to, and how all this is connecting. And today Mr. Yihan did mention about how in Singapore they are enabling this additive manufacturing across places, and we had one session based on additive manufacturing and how it can enable sustainable repairs, dry docking, and everything, and especially in a developing country like India, where Maritime India Vision does state that they want to strengthen this industry. So it's really nice to see how all of these topics are coming together, and it doesn't matter how distinct or segregated or different they sound, they all actually do come together for a very futuristic maritime ecosystem. So that is very great to see. And it also gives us a lot of hope that now that, as Puneet did mention, IMRC is going to go back, all the great inputs collected today will be collated, and we'll be publishing a paper. There might be some more work that we need to do, because a lot of you have referenced some other work, case studies, papers, where we will try to collect actual literature review and see how we can take it forward. At that point, we will also be calling upon researchers to help us with that work. So we will be reaching out to universities, calling upon them so that they can help us build very good papers which can be circulated to industries and academia with either solutions, the way ahead, challenges, and of course, the last topic is future research areas. So academics can engage in it and the industry can then use them back, so we do a good loop and a good confluence between both entities. So actually, that's all I have to say. Thank you everyone for attending this, and thank you to our great panel for doing this and this wonderful discussion. So Puneet, if with your permission, do you have any final comments, or should we end?
I just want to add that make sure that the researchers contact these panelists to get their data and reaffirmed as well, and also use their insights, right? So this is the best way they will contribute going forward. I'm sure all of them are willing to do that. Thank you so much. That's all.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed.
Thank you, and have a nice day. And do join for our last session today on Maritime HR and Training at 2:30 India time. That would be followed by IMRC
5 p.m. Singapore.
closing. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.